Most investors lose money in junior mining stocks, not because the sector is broken, but because they don't know how to decode them. Headlines, hype, a few flashy drill holes suck people in, and 80% of those companies will never make it. I'm Andrew O'Donnell, founder of The Market Mindset. And after years in finance and watching billions flow in and out of this sector, I built the drill sheet. 10 factors, 10 minutes, one score that filters out all the noise and shows you which stories deserve your money. First, rocks matter. Without continuity, without scale, without real 3D models, you've got nothing. The drill sheet asks, is this deposit a system or is it just a one-hit wonder? Without that foundation, the stock dies. Second, bet on people, not just rocks. Has management raised money before? Have they built a mine? Have they sold a project? The drill sheet scores the team the same way Wall Street scores CEOs, by track record, not by promises. Third, catalysts move stocks, not just rocks. Geology is the foundation, but stocks reprice on events investors can trade. Drill results that prove scale, JV deals, financing, resource updates. Without catalysts on the horizon, even great geology won't move the share price. The drill sheet maps those catalysts on a timeline, so you know if you're looking at the next re-rate or just watching cash burn. Fourth, know your multiples. If you're paying $100 million market cap for a story your peers are paying $20 million for, you're the bag holder. The drill sheet benchmarks juniors against peers to know if you're buying leverage or paying for hype. Now, let me be clear. The drill sheet is not a magic number. It's not a crystal ball. It won't predict the future or tell you when to buy or when to sell. What it does is far more practical. It filters out 80% of those juniors that are just noise, and it shines a spotlight on the small minority with legitimate prospects. It's the fastest way to reveal true potential and to know the right questions to ask next. That's why we tie it to CEO interviews. We've done hundreds of CEO interviews. The score points that spotlight, and the interviews let us drill deeper. This is book one of the Drill Sheet series, Unlocking Junior Mining Opportunities. 10 factors, 10 minutes, one score that filters noise and shows you the minority of juniors with a real shot. Here's how to try it. Download book one free right now. Every Friday, we go live with subscribers and we break down the 2 companies that we scored that week. If you subscribe now for just $9, we'll run a drill sheet on your pick, the company you want to see. Send us the ticker and you'll see the framework at work. Stop guessing. Start investing like the pros. Download Unlocking Junior Mining Opportunities today and join us on Friday.
Today, we're talking to Al Kroontje, CEO of San Lorenzo Gold. The ticker is SLG on the TSX Venture. San Lorenzo is advancing the 100% owned Salvadora project in Chile's mega porphyry belt system, just 15 kilometers from Codelco's El Salvador copper gold mine, which is about a 1 billion ton system. Salvadora is a 9,000 hectare land package with multiple targets. Now, hopefully, bear with me with the pronunciation here. Cerro Blanco, Arco de Oro, Tres Amigos, and Cabello Muerto. And they've already hit long runs of plus gram gold in porphyry style alteration at more than one of them. Now, Al himself has more than 30 years of resource development, 15 of those in Chile, which once again in our model is always critical. They're in the region that they know well. The reason we've got him on is simple. Recent drilling at Cerro Blanco delivered a discovery hole of 153.5 meters at about 1 gram per ton gold, followed by more long intercepts. And they've kicked off the next phase of drilling funded by a new credit facility in order to help the structure of the share structure. And really what we're asking is, how big can this system get? What are the catalysts that could actually re-rate the stock? And so with all of that as their framing, let's get into it with Al. Pleasure to have you on, and really excited to go through what has been discovered and what is developing here at Salvadora.
Hey, really great to be with you, Andrew.
So the way I kind of frame the first kind of idea is that Cerro Blanco is obviously no longer a concept. It is an emerging porphyry discovery. So maybe tell us about that original thesis and how we've gotten to where we are right now.
Well, sure. The target really was a lithocap that was obvious from surface that we couldn't get into right away because we had to build a bunch of road into, but we've always wanted to drill it. So last year we did a bunch of IP over it, which was very attractive, and then did a pretty wide-spaced recon program, 3 holes. They were all 500 meters apart from each other, so very wide-spaced. And son of a gun if all 3 didn't get great intercepts. So obviously that sparked our interest, and now we're back at Cerro Blanco as of about 3 weeks ago, starting our second or follow-up drill program at Cerro Blanco, and that's going to be followed up with holes at another target called Arco de Oro.
I love
actually,
this. Oh, sorry,
actually, yeah, I'm sorry. Well, you put a picture on the screen. It's a little bit busy because there's a lot of surface geochem information on there but what the takeaway there is, you could see the lithocap right there in the middle of the screen, and they're very prevalent in porphyry type deposits in Chile in the megaporphyry belt. So that's a very good indicator.
That's one of the key things we always like to look at is some of these indicators that help push a thesis along. I mean, you obviously have the assays, and you're going to have more soon. Those are obviously the truth machine. But to have that IP that led you to this, that also I think is very important because it shows that the thesis is coming together in real time.
Well, very much so. I think most geologists would tell you that IP is a good pyrite finder, shall we say. What's interesting is that pyrite and gold in this system appear together. We've proven that with all 3 of the first holes. We drilled chargeability anomalies with those 3 holes, and all 3 of them work. So admittedly, that's pretty lucky. But having said that, having a tool that works is pretty good. The picture that you put up on the screen indicates Cerro Blanco. You'll note that there's the 3 holes that we drilled, the smaller circles, and they were targeting the IP section at the bottom. And you can see what we covered there from the bottom 2 holes. And unfortunately, we didn't get to the strongest IP anomaly in our first drilling program. That's the section you see at the top of those 3. And the reason was the access just wasn't doable without a lot of blasting and building a road. So we ran more IP here in May, and that's the middle line. So we have just finished drilling that middle line about 2 weeks ago, and it's a pretty strong anomaly, as you can tell. So we're pretty encouraged. You will note that we put a press release out saying that we'd finished that hole, and we saw mineralization, sulfides in that hole, similar to what we saw in the first hole we drilled at Cerro Blanco. So that's pretty encouraging for us.
I think I like to kind of rephrase things for people that are new to mining. We have, half of our crowd is new and learning about this. And tell me if I'm wrong here. With IP, is this is induced polarization? So you're kind of taking X-ray in the ground. You're pumping small electrical current, and you're seeing then you turn it off. You see what holds to kind of highlight chargeability or how long it holds, and things like chalcopyrite or pyrite will hold longer for others. Is that kind of, if someone was to kind of think of what are we trying to see here? Is that a good way of framing it?
I think you framed it very well. So you induce a charge and then measure the rate at which it discharges. Now, there are 2 things that are recorded: resistivity and chargeability. And typically in porphyries, they tend to work together if there's a real porphyry system there, because quartz is fairly high resistivity, whereas the sulfides that include chalcopyrite and pyrite are much more conductive. So it's a good tool. Now, having said that, I think you would probably hear people say, well, there's been a lot of chargeability features drilled. What you have to establish is that if you're getting that signature and the pyrite and chalcopyrite associated with it, that there is a valuable mineral there as well. And we've established that with 3 holes at Cerro Blanco, which is, well, I'm repeating, but is pretty lucky. So yeah, we've established IP as a very useful tool at Cerro Blanco.
And it becomes more of an indicator. Like if someone wants to put like a weighting on indication of things, and also kind of it ties into the closology or proximity, is once you get results like this from the truth machine, from assays, and you start seeing the lengths and the grades that are very encouraging, and you start to see the IP as well, it's then a lot easier to look for comparable. And you've got a comparable 17 kilometers away. Now, once again, I'm not being overly promotional. I'm not saying it's going to be that, but it's logically reasonable to start going, we've met some barriers. We can start making more comparisons now along the way, which that makes proximity now much more valuable. Once again, is that a fair way of framing it?
Well, I think geological setting is always important. We're finding ourselves in a caldera collapse feature, just like the El Salvador mine that is operated by Codelco. That's about 15 kilometers to the northeast on trend. The point to take away from that really is that it's a really big mine, having produced something like 65 billion pounds of copper and about 6 million ounces of gold, and it's still in production. It's been on production for over 70 years, I think. So the indicators are there. What's maybe a better takeaway, though, is that waving your arms and saying, yeah, well, there might be mineralization here, there might be something good here, is all good as a story, but this property was never drilled until we moved on to it. So we're the ones that have done all the drilling at Salvador, and we have found mineralization. So it's no longer an arm waving thing.
Yes.
I want to make sure that you were talking about the truth machine. Well, the truth machine is the assays. Let's just be clear about that. But the potential for something very, very huge at Cerro Blanco was very, very real. Now, that will be borne out by drilling. So, I mean, if you were to put up, there's a slide actually for Cerro Blanco that kind of shows what I'm talking about here. It's that exact slide right there. Now, why is that important? Well, it shows right at the south end of the yellow feature there is the first hole we drilled. Well, the second hole we drilled is the one immediately to the northeast of it. But then the strongest IP feature from the old IP line that we have not yet drilled is on that third line to the north. Now, if you were to extend that, and that's an awful long way, you would get to where you see the picture. Now, what's the significance of the picture? That's from the valley floor to the north of the property. And there's the alteration that you can see right at the valley floor. And I'd point out that where we're drilling is about 420 meters higher than the valley floor. So we haven't even penetrated yet down to the depth of what we're seeing on the valley floor there. So, I mean, I'm not suggesting here that it does continue on like that. But when you've got a picture like that and you've got strong IP on trend, I mean, if we're lucky and this continues on this isn't looking for something small. This is looking for many hundreds of millions of tons and many million ounces of gold associated with it if we're lucky in our continued drilling. We're encouraged by the IP, but again, it has to be drilled and confirmed. But boy, you know, this is the kind of stuff you want to see, and you want to see that it's got this kind of really big potential.
And part of that IP as well is that it's not also showing like the continuities there, but showing the geometry. So like a 3D model for people, once again, if you're retail and you're kind of wondering, well, why does this matter, is that you can start grafting a 3D model of potential size and where to have step outs to go further to kind of give more width and breadth of the size of scale of what you're dealing with.
I think that's a bit of a stretch, Andrew.
Okay.
I think that to be very accurate, you'd say that running the IP kind of tells you where to go to drill next. And then when you actually get assays, you see how the feature is trending. And so,
Okay.
you know, in the diagram I showed a minute ago, that is our interpretation of where it's trending, but it's supported by a 1.2 kilometers of alteration down on the valley floor. And and results from our drilling and from our IP. But to say, yeah, just because you've got IP signature, that guarantees. No,
Yeah.
it has to be drilled. Sorry for that cautionary note, but it really, yeah, everything in a proper stepwise function, and that's how it should be done. But the potential here is very big.
No, it's good to call that out, because once again, we're dealing with potentialities and probabilities, and we certainly don't want to mislead anyone. But you've got already the evidence to support the thesis moving forward already. It, I guess, now is to look at a couple of the other projects associated as well, because you have some great results as well, and some great sniffs and hints as well from this, I think, 5 targets in total. So maybe, and I don't want people to get too confused on all that's there, but it's important because it's leading to this idea that it's moving towards a district scale discussion rather than we found something, and that is important because they like to see scale.
Well, maybe I'll just highlight this picture here. What we just looked at was the far right or easterly target called Cerro Blanco. But you'll notice there's 4 targets. There's actually 5, one that we haven't drilled yet, so we're not focused on it, but it's got great IP and also great surface geochem on it. But focusing on the 4 targets that you see on this map, the next one we would move to is the one all the way on the left side, which is west, of course, and that's called Tres Amigos, which is just an absolutely wonderful looking system of parallel swarming whatever veins that come right to surface that we've been getting some really great results from. The next slide would show kind of a picture of those, a couple more, yeah, for Arco de Oro. The next one, yeah, that kind of shows what we're looking at here. So you alluded to IP being a real good exploration tool. We benefit from an additional exploration tool, and that's the inset in the picture. There are 6 kilometers of old workings, like you see in that picture, along that strike. You'll note that I put the arrows in there, and that's 6 kilometers of overall strike. But in addition to, let's say, geophysics and surface geochem, you'll notice all those green dots in there, and I know it's too small for people to look at, but those are significant surface sampling values that we've recovered, and we've done some drilling here already. And so while those artisanal workings that are in the picture are pretty shallow, they're 3 to 5 to 7 meters deep, they're 20 to 50 years old. They essentially hauled the ore out on pickup trucks and sold it. But it demonstrates that the grades are significant in order to be able to do that. In fact, if we were to go to the next slide, you'd see that our last 2 holes drilled, you can see those assays there, but one of them's shallower, the first one, 1-25, and 4-22 is the one we did before that. But I mean, there's a lot of people dream about those kind of intercepts, right? 22 meters of 4.5, 4.75 gram, but 6.5 meters of half-ounce gold, and within that is 1.5 meters of 2-ounce gold. So that's down deeper. We tested it just to make sure that the system goes down deep, which is what we want, of course. But if you look at that upper hole that we just drilled here earlier this year, I mean, when you get those kind of intercepts, we intercepted 3 parallel veins there. So, I mean, really, they speak for themselves. I mean, I can go through it, but, there's a lot of people would dream about getting that kind of intercept, frankly.
Yeah.
But if you go to the next slide, it's a cartoon, but you'll note that just the core zone of 2.5 meters over about 1 kilometer that we've now drilled there averages 17.5 grams. So in other words, half-ounce gold.
Yeah.
And we've demonstrated that at least in one place it goes down 300 meters. There's no reason to believe that it wouldn't go down there. But what's the point of this? If you do a quick calculation, there's your first 1 million ounces.
Yes.
And that's over 1 kilometer. Now, I would point out that some friends of ours with some research houses have done some modeling on this, and the suggestion is that there's open pittable grade here that could have 1 million ounces at an open pittable diluted grade of over 3 grams. And if that's the case, and we're going to be drilling more of that in this program, that causes a significant re-rate of San Lorenzo. There's comps out there that have 1 million ounces at 1.5 grams of diluted grade that are trading at $400 million market caps versus our $50 million market cap. So, but we are also focused on extending strike length. And I sure wouldn't want to have anybody say, well, we're absolute geniuses about where the holes go. We're testing a lot of this based on surface artisanal workings as well that go for 6 kilometers. So it's really exciting.
That is pretty wild too, because I mean, you were mentioning at Tres Amigos. I mean, that was like what at surface, like you get like 5% copper near surface epithermal zones.
You're thinking of Tres Amigos.
Tres Amigos, yes.
Yeah, sorry, that's a different system. One of the 4 targets, of course, but not Arco de Oro. Interestingly, Arco de Oro is very high grade gold with some copper and some silver, whereas Tres Amigos, interestingly enough, appears to be lower in the system, and it's very high grade copper. Okay. In fact, we can have a look at those other two. Well, there's Tres Amigos.
Yeah, there's right there. Yes. Okay, we see the depth there. Yes.
Well, those kind of intercepts, we haven't done much drilling here, right? And this goes on for 2 kilometers. What's interesting, of course, is I stand in the field with Terry, the VPX, and he points across the valley floor there. You can see at the top of the picture. He says, well, look at it. It's just continuing on over there. You can see it. So we've got 2 kilometers to investigate here. But, I mean, these are very interesting grades. Very, very interesting. So it's a great system, and we need to put some attention to it, which we haven't. And there's one more, and that's called Caballo Muerto.
Yes. That
we really do. Yeah, there it is. I mean, this again is another target, one of the 4 targets we've been talking about, but we need to do more work on it. But have a look at that intercept. I mean, 112 meters of 1.44 gold. We think this is a system all by itself and a compelling target. We need to continue drilling there as well.
And this is what's fascinating is you've got a number of very large scale. And would it be, here, let me frame it this way. And I know I'm jumping around from project to project here a bit, but at De Oro, would you say that's kind of like a second engine or more of like a piston to the first system? Does it to Cerro Blanco?
Well, that's such a great question. So Cerro Blanco is a porphyry target. Mineralizing events, mineralizing fluids having come up and causing that, and we appear to be higher in the system where the gold is, and we expect that there's copper below us. Again, I would point out we haven't even gotten to the valley floor yet with our drilling. But Arco de Oro is different than that. It's an epithermal system they're very common, and they're splays off of the main intrusive when a secondary or even the primary pressurizing event finds faults, cracks, whatever, and looks to find the easiest path to reduce the pressure. So it's very common where you find these epithermal systems associated with porphyry systems in Chile. Well, in lots of places around the world, actually. So all the indicators just keep pointing to numerous systems on this property that's about 90 square kilometers.
That scale and size is what people like. They're attracted to as well, and it's important because I always liken it to kind of treasure hunting. People want they're like, listen, if we're going to go for something, let's go for something big, and this is shaping up. And I love seeing that one slide as well, where it shows all 5 clustered together. And when you think of it as these different systems kind of driving forward, it's and once again, we're still early stages. But I mean, there's a lot of great work already done. But but I like because people can visualize here. that we're not going quote unquote to depth either. Like we're just looking up the mountain and down. The mind can kind of get your head wrapped around like, ooh, I can see how this gets developed on, and the what if, can it go below? And obviously that's you'll be searching that as well. But it's nice to have you frame this to see it as well, so people can visualize and go, oh, I think I see what you're talking about and how this is working out.
Well, okay. I appreciate your complimentary words there. The facts are that all four of these targets, every one of them are multi-million ounce targets, and any one of them has the ability to re-rate San Lorenzo by factors and not just percentages. And so we're excited. We have to do lots of drilling, but it's a very endowed property, and so we're very blessed and fortunate. Yes, it doesn't have enough drilling on it yet. We're the only ones that have drilled on it, but we intend to, like you said, go deeper. Interestingly, on that first hole at Cerro Blanco, the chalcopyrite to pyrite ratio started improving or increasing, I should say. So we need to test that as well to figure out, if we're indeed on the upper portions of a porphyry system here.
Excellent. Let's just shift just briefly here, because I like to show people too how they can quote unquote make money in a stock as well. Let's look at, like, you've got, I think, $55 million market cap. We'll pull up the share structure, what you've got here, just to touch on this very briefly, so people can kind of see, 80 million shares out, roughly all inclusive. Walk us through a little bit of how you've managed this, as you've moved forward.
Well, we've tried to control the treasury. The treasury of outstanding shares very much, and we're keen to continue to do that. I mentioned before that these targets have the potential for re-rating, and that will be benefited from a share structure that's reasonably tight. We don't have a lot of institutions in, but insiders own a reasonable stake in this company and are very committed to making this happen.
And I like that debt convertible function as well, because it shows the consideration that of belief in the project without kind of blowing up the share structure at low stock price. That is a big signal. Like just as in geology, you look for indicators and halos, and you assess all the information. Also, when we're looking at a company at finance, you have to look and go, hey, what are some of the indicators here? That's a very strong positive indicator of belief in the system and what's coming out. And I think that's important. Not that we have to dive deep into it, but I think that shows a commitment and shows that willingness to make sure you keep the structure as tight as possible in R&D. I mean, which is essentially exploration is.
Well, it's true. That's what we're striving to do.
No, and I like that, because it once again, it shows people that as you mentioned, hinted before, and we won't get into a comparable with another company, but there are companies trading at a 400 million market cap that you could start already safely making comparables against. And that also shows people that, hey, there is opportunity here. Part of the issue is people need to know that you're there and that the work is being done, and the potential. And once again, I reiterate, when people start to see a lot of these indicators, when they see the assays, they get to hear from you the overall thesis that has been shown, and from step one to where you are today, where it can go. And that makes it a compelling company and set of projects. I'll say all five are kind of wrapped into one, because it can't be district scale, but it's all five of them or we'll focus on the four are significant on their own. And that is once again, also pretty telling as well.
Yeah, I would like to caution just for a moment that making comparisons to $400 million market cap, there's reasons for that, but it's based on doing a little bit more drilling. And having said that, we're getting great success with the drill bit, so we're very confident. But I don't want to sit here and say, yeah, we should be 400 million market cap. I'm trying to be a little cautious there with that comment, But I think you understand what I'm saying. The
Yes.
indicators are there. The potential for major re-rates by any one of those targets are very real. And, well, let's leave it at very real.
Yes. And for us, I mean, we look at to see what's the catalyst and what's the thesis and what we need to be focused on, as next steps. Because when someone looks and goes, okay, well, I'm interested in what you guys are up to. How big a program can you do? And I guess that would be, well, coming back to the market, go, well, how much of appetite does the market want to give you to some degree?
Well, it's safe to say that this property really does warrant substantial additional exploration efforts, including more IP at Cerro and then drilling, including increasing strike length along the Arco de Oro trend, and all following up at Cerro Blanco. I mean, that's such a great intercept, and same with the copper numbers at Tres Amigos. I mean, yeah, it's an endowed property. We're very blessed.
Let's just touch on just briefly here too, the overall kind of macro right now, between what you're looking for and what you're finding, copper and gold. I think it's important to frame that as well as the general interest, because that we're seeing that now finally in retail news. People are talking about copper from the electrical component, not only just from that, from the significant demand and shortfalls in supply. And also the gold story has been picking up, and I have a strong belief that it'll continue from a fiscal point of view. So maybe kind of just we'll chat about that a little bit.
Well, sure. Those are two different dynamics going on.
Yeah.
Talking about gold, it's kind of hard to see where a lot of countries want to buy more and more U.S. debt. That is not that hard to confiscate if they really want, and rather say, okay, well, wait a minute, maybe we should be in control of what we have, and maybe we need to repatriate and have control of that kind of stuff. It's just that the continued issuance of debt by the U.S. backed by a U.S. dollar, it's hard to fathom that continues unchecked forever, and therefore gold really is, well, in my opinion anyway, gold's the play when it comes to that, right? So, yeah, that's one dynamic. So the other dynamic is copper that you just mentioned, and I mean, we're all aware that there's significant shortfalls in supply forecast for towards the end of this decade, and that mines won't come on in time to satisfy that demand shortfall. And so price run-ups have been enjoyed, clearly, $5 copper now. But the potential of that continuing for a while is very real.
I did an article yesterday kind of taking the position, I don't know, I'm jumping a little bit off here, about Rico Deek barracks property in Pakistan, and looking at that with Exim Bank coming in saying, hey, we could participate for $1 billion in that. That's a longer article and a longer kind of thesis. But my idea was, well, they're interested in the copper. That's probably a big position for them. The U.S. knows they've got all these AI data centers. The amount of copper they need for grid is absolutely alarming almost. And where are you going to get it? How fast are you going to get it? And they're starting to really pay attention to that. And I think it's worth just kind of throwing it out there because it shows that there is a commitment. Once again, I'm nerding out a little bit and trying to tie dots together, but it shows that there is, at the highest levels, there's an acknowledgement now that we need to get some copper. We can't just rely on where we've been getting it before, because we've seen some serious shortfalls, and we desperately need more coming on board and more mines coming on board.
Well, that's the common wisdom right now. I'd point out that Chile provides a greater proportion of the world's copper than OPEC supplies as a percentage of oil. So Chile's a major player when it comes to copper. It's very blessed with lots of copper there, and so the regime there, especially in northern Chile where we operate, is very favorable to mining, as most people would know. There was a start a couple of years ago, a year and a half, with a mining referendum that was proposed in Chile that would change the mining rules to be more favorable for the country, increasing royalty rates, etc. And it was defeated 2-1. 66 2/3 voted against changing the mining rules. So Boric became something of a, I don't know what you want to call it, but not able to empower. It wasn't very empowered after that. So the elections are changing things, and Chile just keeps demonstrating that it's a safe jurisdiction in which to do business. Permitting and the like are so pleasant, really. They have a national company called Cernacumen that in northern Chile, where we operate again, you submit your plan, and they have 30 days, well, 20 working days, but to respond and say they want more information. But if they don't, you're free to go. And
wow.
no, it's great. We've never, great. Well, it is. We never encountered a delay to date in our drilling programs. Now, I would point out that if you're going to do 100 holes, then we start to get into the part about environmental studies and stuff. But
yeah,
but you know, in the level that we're at and doing what we're doing, we've not run into any issues, and it's pleasant there. Having said that, there's nobody around for miles, you know. So, yeah,
but that's part of the great story is that no one has drilled here. That this is you guys have found this, and there's definitely 4. I know it's early on the 5th one, kicks at the can here. I guess the big questions for people as far as like catalysts will be like you assessing all the data, what's next, and where you're drilling next, and what that's going to look like as well. So I mean, people will be, you've got a drill program right now, but if you could start attracting institutional investors, more retail investors who finally see this and go, ooh, you guys are onto something. That allows you, to expand, fairly rapidly.
Well, we are onto something.
Yeah,
we've demonstrated it with the holes that we've drilled, right? So it's not like I said earlier in this session here, that we're waving our arms around. We're not. We're just demonstrating that there's something there with results, and so we look forward to this drilling program now, and then a follow-up right away, so well, clarifying, we're going to need a little bit more IP, and we continue to do geochem and surface sampling, in other words, regularly. So it's just a wonderful place to be when every time you turn around you're finding mineralization. That's a blessed place to be.
Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure for me to be able to have you on to explain. We always like to cut through a lot of the noise, a lot of the hand waving, to find real projects that are proving up their thesis, to really hone in analytically at what someone has. And this is very, very compelling, to say the least. And we love having people on that can explain how they've got here, what they're doing next, because there's a lot of companies out there, and we like to highlight ones that are onto something. I mean, and it's so hard, especially for new people, when they go, okay, I understand we need copper. I know we need, we'd like more gold and all this. How do I even get into this? There's so many companies. And I look at, part of my job is to narrow down ones that deserve the attention. I would argue that would be my word. Than others, because there is a lot to sift through. And if someone can help, we've got a drill sheet model that we use that helps us to target companies and kind of funnel through the noise. But this is a fantastic project. I'll let you kind of wrap it up for us and remind us of the key things that have developed and what you've got here, maybe a couple of the assays as well, and where you see this going in the next 3 months, 6 months, even year ahead. And we'll leave you with that, Al.
Well, sure. A quick summary is that it's a wonderful opportunity. I've got a quote of our VPX, Terry Walker, who is a integral part of this, by the way. He knows the rocks there. He's domiciled in Chile and has been working the porphyry belt, mega porphyry belt, for 27 years. And This is a favorite property of his, and we're going to be drilling for the next couple of months on this program that we started about 3 weeks ago, and anticipate drilling a lot more during 2026 to 2026. Yeah. Going forward, it should be a really interesting time for us. We're super excited.
Well, actually, maybe we'll have Terry have the last comment here because he's not on with us, but he is a co-founder. And it's this quote you have here on the screen here, and people may not be able to read it, but it says, Terrence Walker says, Salvadora has at least 5 large alteration zones capable of hosting multi-million ounce deposits. And when you look at the slides we just walked through, the scale argument becomes a lot harder to dismiss. That is very, very important for someone to recognize that this has, hosts multi-million ounce deposits, has huge potential. And that's that kind of size and scale is what people are very interested in.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Yes. It's great. It's fun when you're drilling and you find things. That's an obvious statement, but yeah, it's good. We're going to have a great year ahead of us.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to seeing what happens in 2026 here. And we wish you all the best in the meantime. But once again, reach out to me if you've got any questions. Once again, we love strong theses that are coming together that have the evidence to support it. It's early stages, but once again, that's where we like to be. We like to see something that's being formed and maybe not getting the attention that it deserves, because that has the potential of being asymmetric. So once again, thanks so much, Al. It was a real pleasure having you on to walk us through what you've got here, and we're going to keep our eyes peeled on it. I appreciate your time.
Thank you a lot for the opportunity, Andrew.
All the best, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care, everyone.